Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we've got another featured build for you guys. This is a Magicka Dragonknight brought to us by WhyWhyWhy EA, and this build is just powerful in every aspect. It has got fantastic sustain, fantastic damage, it's durable to boot, and it has the ability to stay mobile as well. So just an all-around fantastic Magicka Dragonknight in-your-face brawler melee build. And a huge shout out again to WhyWhyWhy EA for sending the build in. Be sure to check out this man's YouTube channel. We've got a link to his channel down in the description below. So show the love and don't be shy to drop this man a sub. And of course, we've got a lot of PvP footage of the build in action brought to us by WhyWhyWhy EA as well. So be sure to take a look at some of that sweet gameplay. And without further ado, let's take a look at that build, guys. So to begin, WhyWhyWhy is a Breton on the Dragonknight, and I think Breton is one of, if not the best choice for this build, just being one of the best Magicka races all around, and this build in particular just benefits a lot from the sustain and the max mag that Breton will add. Now, you can definitely go for another race. Dark Elf and High Elf are both great options if you want to try that. I wouldn't recommend Khajiit because this isn't a super crit focused build, but it's not a terrible option either because it is fairly flexible. And of course, Dragonknight always benefits from going Nord if you want to have a little bit more alt-gen focus on your build and a little bit additional durability. Now, taking a look at the max stats on this build, we've got a whopping 45k Magicka, 25.7k health, and 17k stamina. So WhyWhyWhy going for that big max stat on this spec. And of course, Dragonknight benefits so much from the max stat just because of how the class works with Battle Roar. And of course, this build is using Tri-Restoration Potions. So just having big max stat pools means that we can make the most out of those flat resource restore that we get from the potions and Battle Roar. But yeah, 45k mag, that's a lot of Magicka to work with. Almost 26k HP in light armor, absolutely fantastic. And the 17k stam, we've got a lot of stam to break free, to roll dodge, to block everything we need to do on the mag DK. Now, taking a look at the regen on this build, we're just going to buff up with the potions so you guys can see the fully buffed sustain, 1687 Magicka recovery, 244 health recovery, and 861 stam recovery. So the regens don't look crazy high, but don't worry, Dragonknight in general just doesn't need to rock a lot of sustain. They're going to get a lot of resource back, especially in the Dragonhold patch. They're going to get even more Magicka back from applying burning to opposing players. Now, this build also has minor Magicka steal, so we've got even more sustain coming out of that as well. Now, taking a look at the spell damage on this build, when we buff up with our whip buff here, if we had the major sorcery, which we get from attacking a target, and we had the staff poke, this build would be sitting at 3k spell damage fully buffed. So a beautiful amount of spell damage to sit with that 45k maximum Magicka. Now, the spell crit on this build is sitting at 40%, which is just kind of bare bones for a Magicka build. There's not a lot of focus on crit on this build, so it's not a huge deal. And then, of course, the resistances on this build. When we buff up with the armor here, on the front bar, we've got 25.5k spell resist and almost 21k physical resist. And then on the back bar, we've got 26.6k spell resist and nearly 22k physical resist. And then 2,843 critical resistance to go with it. So some nice resistance for the build, especially in light armor. Now, for the Mundus on this build, WhyWhyWhy has gone with the Mage, and I think he went with this just to go for that max mag stack on the spec. You could go for the spell damage here if you wanted. I think you'd actually get a little bit more damage and healing out of the spell damage, but it's totally up to the user what you want to do here. Going for the max mag has its own advantages for sure, especially on a Dragonknight, just playing into the resource restore from having the big max pools. Now, taking a look at the food for this build, WhyWhyWhy has gone with the all primary max stat. Now, it says increases all by 0, but that is incorrect. When we go over the food here, we've got every resource coming in, 4,500 health, 4,100 Magicka and stamina. Like I said, really fantastic for the Dragonknight. Dragonknight turns max stat into sustain better than any other class, so really, really fantastic just all around for this build. And then last but not least, WhyWhyWhy is a vampire on this spec. And vampirism is a must-have. We're using Mist Form, and we've got the Vampire Ultimate on the build. You will take more damage from fire attacks, but the Undeath will definitely help you stay alive as well. So it's got its positives and negatives. You could go no vampirism on this spec, but it definitely adds a lot of strength to this build. Now, taking a look at the potion we're running on the spec, we went over it, I mentioned it a little earlier, the Tri-Restoration Potion, just restoring all 3 primary stats and giving all 3 primary recoveries as well, which is really nice just for the sustain side of things. Like I said, Dragonknight really benefits from a potion like this, especially if they have a lot of max stat. Now, for the gear on the spec, guys, the first set that WhyWhyWhy has is the Bloodspawn set. And this is just a fantastic set for Dragonknight. Dragonknight gains resource back when they use their ultimates. So we get some stam recovery here, which is going to help us just sustain the blocking and all the use of the stam pool in general. And, of course, the ultimate gen. When we take damage, we can have a 6% chance to generate 14 ultimate and gain the physical spell resistance buffs. This allows this build to push nearly 30k physical resistance and over 30k spell resist, almost 35k spell resist. So really fantastic defensive resists when Bloodspawn procs on this build. Now the next set that we've got on is the Curse Eating set, and this is just an all-around amazing set defensively for PvP and for your sustain too. It gives some max mag, the Magicka recovery, and then when you heal yourself or an ally with a direct heal, you remove up to 3 negative effects from them. If a negative effect was removed, you restore 600 Magicka, and this can occur every 8 seconds. So yeah, an incredible 5-piece to have, especially if you're playing this build in the Scalebreaker patch, and still, I think, an amazing 5-piece to have going into the Dragonhold patch as well. Just the ability to remove those negative effects can help you shut down things that Dragonknight can struggle against. Things like Defiles, things like Curses, etc., these unblockable attacks. These are things that you can use the Purge to counter as well. And then, if that's not enough, you get that Sustain on top of it. 600 Magicka every 8 seconds, assuming you're using this on cooldown. This would be like 150 Magicka recovery on top of what you've got for the effect removal. So just a great set all around, especially for Dragonknight, which doesn't have access to any kind of effect removal outside of the Alliance War Purge skill. Now the next set that he's gone for is the Crafty Alfiq set, and well, this is just given that max mag. And a lot of it. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 max mag, and then the 5-piece 2,560 max mag. Yep, just great for outgoing damage and healing, and the sustain, a great set for the Dragonknight all around. Now for the weapon traits, guys, on the back bar, WhyWhyWhy has gone with defending with the weapon and spell damage enchant on the back bar here. So the defending choice is just going to give him more bulk on his Frost Staff bar, which is absolutely fantastic. He is, of course, running Mist Form on this bar, so that additional bulk goes a long way. And then the weapon spell damage enchant, absolutely fantastic to have on the back bar, especially a ranged weapon. And on the front bar, he's got the Nirnhoned sword here. Now, it doesn't matter if you have the sword, the dagger, axe, or mace. When you do one hand and shield, it has no effect on your stats at all. It's only for dual wield where you get any kind of a bonus from the specific type of weapon here. And then on the shield, he has gone with the sturdy trait and the maximum Magicka enchant. Now, the one hand and shield bar is his offensive bar, so the max mag enchant is going to be great for that outgoing damage on the front bar here as well, and the sturdy trait for that block is absolutely fantastic. Both bars having a very strong block on this build, just giving a lot of all-around durability on this spec. Now, for the poison on the front bar here, WhyWhyWhy has gone with the poison damage, minor cowardice, and minor breach poison. Now it's going to add that nice dot over time. The minor cowardice is going to increase the cost of your opponent's ultimates by 60% and increase your spell power by 10% for 2.3 seconds. So the minor spell power buff is really nice here just for that additional burst, and the increased cost of your opponent's ultimate really trolly, and minor breach for that additional just damage against your target, reducing their spell resistance. So all around, just a very offensive poison. Now, I personally don't like to go with so many things on a poison like this because it's a very short duration, but when this procs, it'll be very, very strong. You could always go for a different poison that has maybe just one of these or even different effects, and that'll give you a longer duration on the desired effect that you want more than the others. Now for the jewelry, he has gone with 2 arcane and a triune, and then 2 spell damage enchants with the Magicka recovery enchant as well. If you guys want to play this build on the no CP campaign, I think having 1 extra Magicka recovery enchant for no CP could come in handy here. So that's where I would make the change for no CP. Now the triune choice here, this is because I think he wanted a little bit more max HP, and the max stam was just a little bit of a bonus as well. But if you go for full arcane here, if you can't get the transmute on the triune, I think that's all right. It's kind of up to you. You could even go for 3 triune here if you really wanted, just to give you that big bulk to your max stat. Now, taking a look at the gear, he's gone with full impenetrable on the traits. And for such a block-focused build, I think full impen is a really good option. And then he's got the tri-stat Hacky Joe on the big pieces here, and Magicka enchants on the little pieces. Tri-stat on the big pieces, of course, because they are, well, expensive, and you get more bang for your buck here out of the tri-stats. And the Magicka focus just to give him that additional max mag. So I think the choice to have the max mag here and the max mag in the jewelry just puts him at that 45k mag mark, which I think is where he wanted to be on this build. All right, let's take a look at the skills that he's running. The first ability that WhyWhyWhy has is Molten Whip, and this is on the Sword and Board bar. And this is your primary offensive skill for the build. When we buff up with the Whip special effect here, we get up to a 16k tooltip. If we had the spell damage buff and the staff poke, this would be over 18k damage on the Whip. Yeah, this is an absolutely massive burst ability for the Dragonknight, and because we have so many other Ardent Flame abilities on our front bar, it'll be very easy for us to get that really nice whip smack on this build. Now, if you hit an enemy that is immobile or stunned, you set them off balance. This is fantastic because we have the stun from Fossilized, so the off balance will just add more damage to this whip. And then, of course, the special effect of this whip, which we kind of talked about, is while you have it slotted and you use any other Ardent Flame abilities, your next whip will increase in damage by 33%, and you gain 75 additional weapon and spell damage. And this can stack up to 3 times. Just giving this build a huge amount of burst with its main spammable attack as long as you set that combo. Yeah, really deadly stuff. Now, the next ability that we've got here is Engulfing Flames. And this is here because it is, of course, an Ardent Flame ability. It'll help us proc that additional whip damage. It's going to deal a great amount of upfront damage for an AoE dot, a great amount of damage over time as well. And then on top of it, enemies affected by this will take 10% more damage from your offensive fire attacks. So really great stuff. Now, not all builds get up to that 10% value. This build is packing enough offensive pressure in order to hit that 10% value. Now, the next skill that he's got is Fossilized, and this is going to be the primary stun for the build. It's really nasty. It's undodgeable, it's unblockable, and when the stun ends, they take some magic damage, and they're immobilized. And it's an Earthen Heart ability, so activating this will actually return a little bit of stamina too. The next skill that we've got is Cauterize, and this is a really great heal over time for the Dragonknight. It is a passive slot for the Major Prophecy as well. You can spam this ability without targeting anyone, and it's fairly cheap, and it's an Ardent Flame skill, so it allows you to just build up whip stacks at any point. And last but not least, the heal on this, even if you activate it and it heals you after your previous activation, like the second or third tick, it will proc your Curse Eater set. So it's a really fantastic heal for this build, and it synergizes really great with the sets that WhyWhyWhy has chosen. Now, the next skill that we've got is Burning Embers, and this is going to be the primary kind of single target damage over time for this ability. Not only will it deal some nice upfront damage, that really nice damage over time, but it's going to heal you for 77% of the damage inflicted when the effect ends. And the initial hit of this attack will proc the Burning status effect, which guarantees resource return when you use this skill, just through your Dragonknight passives. And then for the last ability here, we have got Ferocious Leap, and this is going to be your primary offensive ultimate. Really, really big burst with this skill. 16k leap unbuffed on this build. It's going to be a gap closer as well. It'll stun everybody that you hit, and then after you use it, you gain a 13k damage shield in PvP, which is a nice big max health shield. That's about half your max HP, so nice defense from it as well. And of course, the stun from this is undodgeable, making it one of the best burst ultimates around. Now, taking a look at the back bar, the first ability that he's got is Degeneration. And in the original build, which was for the Scalebreaker patch, he's actually running Structured Entropy. But in the Dragonhold morph, he's getting the Major Sorcery buff from this skill. And Degeneration is the only morph that gets the Major Sorcery buff. So I kind of just made the choice that I think he's going to run Degeneration here. I assume that's what he'll pick because he still wants that buff and still running the Tripod. So it's going to be a fantastic damage over time, and on top of it, it's going to give us the Major Sorcery buff. Really fantastic stuff. You can already see we've got 3 really powerful dots on this build, and they're really strong spammable with the whip. A lot of damage coming out of this build. Now, the next skill that he's got is Elusive Mist, and this is here for a couple reasons. The first big one is the mobility that it offers. Major Expedition, and just the fact that you can't get stunned or immobilized while you use it. It gives Dragonknight, especially Magicka Dragonknight, which is typically fairly slow, a great ability to stay mobile. And then on top of it, it also gives you that damage reduction by 75% when you enter Mist Form. And this aspect of Mist Form is great for mobility, but you can also use it to soak up big incoming damage from some opponents and then turn around and drop the hammer on them as well. Now, while you're in Mist Form, your Magicka recovery does not work, and you cannot be healed while you're in Mist. So, yeah, it has a lot of bonuses, but it has its drawbacks as well. You can't spam it forever, but if you play your DK right, you'll definitely be able to get a lot of usage out of this skill. Now, the next ability we've got is Elemental Drain, and this guy is free to cast. It will apply Major Breach to your target, giving us even more damage on all the dots and the burst for this build. And then on top of it, we get the Minor Magicka Steal, which is going to give us 300 Magicka every 1 second while we're actively damaging the target. If you dot up an opponent and put the Ele Drain on them, you are getting 600 Magicka recovery. Like, that's pretty much what you're getting. It's so much sustain coming from this skill as long as you keep it on the target that you're focusing on. Really fantastic stuff. And the fact that it's free to cast means that you can just throw it around and you don't have to worry too much about reapplying it to people. Now, the next ability we've got is Volatile Armor, and this is going to be your primary armor buff for the build. On top of it, it's also a really nice AoE splash, and it gives us that dot. 10k magic damage over 10 seconds. It's not as strong as our other dots, but, you know, it just compounds with everything else that we have on this build. And while the armor is active, you return magic damage to any opponent that hits you with direct damage attacks, which just adds a little bit more damage over time pressure if your opponent is retaliating. So there we go. Really good armor buff all around, just from a defensive and offensive perspective. The radius on this ability makes it a really good option to pull Nightblades out of stealth if they're close by you as well. And then last but not least, guys, we've got Coagulating Blood, and this is the primary heal for the build. We've got an 8k base heal increasing by 33% based on your missing health, and of course, when we get our buffs going, this will increase in heal value by quite a lot. We get the healing bonus from having a Dragon Blood ability up, and of course we'll get the offensive buff, so that will give us some nice tooltip power on this heal. You can expect this to be a very effective heal for this build. We've got some good offensive power to back it up. The major fortitude that it gives is, well, you know, not super important. This is just kind of your, hey, I need some health back, where's my strong burst heal skill? And then finally, guys, for the ultimate on the back bar, WhyWhyWhy has gone with Devouring Swarm, and this is just a fantastic offensive/defensive ultimate. It allows you to keep up a lot of pressure while actively healing you, dealing 5k magic damage every 1 second for 7 seconds, and heals you for 2k health for each enemy that they damage. Now, a big bonus for this, especially on a Dragonknight, which returns extra resource when they use ultimates, is that the base cost of the ultimate is what determines the resource return on a DK. So the Vampire ultimate has a base cost of 250 ultimate. So when you use this ultimate at its 197 cost, you'll be getting the resource back as if you spent 250 ultimate. So it's just really great from that sustained perspective for a Dragonknight as well. Now let's take a look at the champion points on this build. The first tree here, the tower tree, he's got 56 Warlord, 2 Sprinter, and 1 Siphoner. Gotta break free, especially on a build that's so block heavy with so much fear going around in these past couple patches. Having a good access to break free is very important. And then this is just because I think he had a few points left over here. In the lover tree, he's got 56 Arcanist and 27 in Tenacity. Big focus on that Mag sustain, and no focus on the other sustains, which makes a lot of sense on the Mag DK 40k. And then the tenacity is a really great all-around option for his sustain. He's got Sword and Board on the front bar, Frost Staff on the back bar, so both the heavy attacks will be very useful to just return the resource of his choice. Now, taking a look at the Shadow Tree, WhyWhyWhy has got 56 Tumbling and a whopping 72 in Shadow Ward. So much focus on the block for this build, and it makes a lot of sense. Sword and Board, Frost Staff, that's exactly what you want. And a lot in Tumbling too, because, well, you need to roll in PvP. He's got that huge stamina bar, so he can really take advantage of it. Now, taking a look at the Apprentice Tree, he's got 11 in Blessed, 51 in Elfborn, 56 Elemental, and 26 Spell Erosion. Big focus on Elemental Expert and Elfborn, just to buff his outgoing critical and magical damage, and he has a little bit less in Spell Erosion, and I think that's because he's already in Light Armor, and he's got the Penetration debuff as well. So he's got a lot of penetration at just base on this build, like 12k penetration plus. So yeah, quite a bit to go for already. And then a little bit additional healing from the Blessed Tree here. The important passives that we get, of course, is Spell Precision for that additional spell critical. And Arcane Well is not bad, but it's not the best passive for PvP because it doesn't proc that often. Now, taking a look at the Atronach Tree, he's got 51 in Master at Arms for the increase in direct damage by 19%. This is for that whip and leap damage. Oh, baby. Now, the important passive that he gets here, I think, is actually Riposte. And this gives you a 15% chance to deal physical damage to your opponent when you block an attack. He's got Sword and Board Frost Staff on, so having Riposte is really nice. Even though it's physical damage, it's just going to push out a little bit additional pressure while he's playing defensive. And then taking a look at the Ritual, 75 in Thaum. Yep, lots of damage over time focus on this build. We've got a lot of dots, 4 dots on the build if you include the armor buff and then the debuff to go with it. This is just going to push that nice big boy damage. And then, of course, the important passive we get here is Exploiter for 10% additional damage against an off-balance enemy. The whips will set your opponent off balance, so it's so important that we get that Exploiter passive for that additional damage. Now, taking a look at the Steed Tree, we've got 56 in Ironclad and 39 in Resistant, and that's it. Big focus on Ironclad to reduce incoming direct damage. This build's got a lot of healing power, so yeah, reducing incoming direct burst is going to help out a lot, especially in the Dragonhold patch. This is going to be some important passive to have. And Resistant to increase the critical resist of this build, also very important. In the Lady Tree, he's got 37 Hardy, 37 in Elemental Defender, 56 in Thick Skinned, and 30 in Light Armor Focus. So a big focus on Thick Skin here to reduce incoming damage over time. In the Dragonhold patch, I don't think you need so much in Thick Skin. I would actually encourage you to put these points a little bit more in Hardy, Elemental, even Resilient, or even in your base armor values if you want. But if you're playing this in the Scale Breaker patch, definitely Thick Skin is the way to go. Now, Light Armor Focus, this is really nice, and I think he made this choice just to supplement the lack of physical resistance for picking Light Armor as the armor weight. Now, taking a look at the Lord Tree, 15 in Quick Recovery for that additional healing power. And that is the build, guys. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into that PvP commentary. WhyWhyWhy, of course, has sent in a lot of footage of this build in action. So without further ado, let's take a look at what he's got here. Right off the bat, him and his friend on the Magplar quickly finishing off a couple red players here, and they're going to push through the tunnels here. And WhyWhyWhy just going for his distance dot up there, setting the debuff, and setting down his spell damage buff as well. And now he's going to go for a few cauterizes before he enters the fight to make sure that he's got his whiff buff up going into this. And he's just going for the dot up here, looking for a chance to hit a good target there. Take some damage himself. He's just going to switch to his back bar, go into block, heal up, and then switch back to his front bar here. Go for the stun on this guy into a huge leap into that whip, finishing that guy off. Goes for the whip on the next player, comboing with the friendly Templar to bring that guy down as well. And now they're going to move on to the next target here. WhyWhyWhy going for the dot up on this guy as well. The Templar going for the dot up too. And there we see just a really quick turn to get that bash. And he just goes right back on top of the Templar. But the enemy Templar quickly healing up there. WhyWhyWhy taking a bit of pressure. The ult's coming down and he just holds block, goes for a bit of a mist, and then right back on the offensive pressure there. The enemy Templar going down as well. And WhyWhyWhy just going to quickly reset. The only buff that he needs to hit really is his Cauterize and his armor buff, so he doesn't need to do a lot of rebuffing on this build, which is really fantastic for such an in the heat kind of build. And, well, there's only 2 enemy Nightblades left. WhyWhyWhy going for some AoE there, just trying to pull the other Nightblade out of stealth. He goes for his ultimate, and Y is just holding the block there. He blocks the enemy ultimate, hits him with the Fossilize into the whip. Just a great counterplay to bring him down. And now in our next fight here, he goes for his Bat Swarm. The friendly Templar goes for his ult on top of the enemy stack as well. And right off the bat, they bring 1 player down, putting a lot of pressure into the rest of the players there. 2 players down, actually, and the rest of them quickly healing up. And WhyWhyWhy just doing a good job dotting these guys up and holding his block here to keep his defense up. And the way that he's playing with this Templar is he's just kind of using his body as a body block. This build has got a lot of sustain, a lot of firepower, and a lot of durability. And WhyWhyWhy is just pulling the attention of the group here. Look at how all 3 enemy players turn around to face him, and they both dump their ults, quickly finishing those guys off. Now, for our next clip here, we've got more yellow players in the sewer. An enemy Dragonknight leaps on top of WhyWhyWhy, and he's just going to reset his buffs here. Go for the counter leap on the stack into the whip. So much damage. 1 player going down. This guy taking heavy pressure. The friendly Templar coming in with that stun to finish him off as well. And there we see the Fossilize into the whip to finish that guy too. And they're going to turn around and just go for pressure on the last guy here who did the right thing. He went behind both of these players just to kind of take the focus off himself. But unfortunately, all of the other yellow players go down. And he's the last guy left. So after they push in here, they go for pressure on this yellow player here, hitting him with the Fossilize into the leap there. The leap hitting this enemy red Nightblade. 2 red Nightblades coming out of stealth here. WhyWhyWhy just going for his AoEs, trying to pull these guys out of stealth, keeping the dot pressure up on the Magblade. A 10k whip. Oh my gosh. That guy just gets nuked, and he's going to reset his heals here, reset his buffs, and then turn around and push right back into these guys. And he goes for a few heavy attacks here just to get a little bit of Magicka back and set that combo into his debuffs, into the dots. The Templar going for the pressure too. And these two just doing a great job with their synchronized gameplay. But they're continuing to tickle the beehive here, and we see a lot of yellow players starting to pour out of the stack here. And, well, they're just going to retreat a little bit here. WhyWhyWhy just going for some heavy attacks to get a little bit of Magicka back. And he's just going to keep on kiting his way back here, resetting all his heals and all his buffs. He's going to pop that heavy attack again, go for his spell damage buff there, and set down his Cauterize. And now he's going to go for pressure on this guy. A great stun into that 10k whip again. Oh my gosh. And there's the Bat Swarm. He starts pushing in, just throwing that AoE dot down on everybody, going for the whips as well. Lots of pressure into this group. Another yellow player going down. There we see the Fossilize into the whips, and the whole time WhyWhyWhy just holding his block as he pushes in there. Gets hit by a stun eventually. No, he doesn't. He just keeps pushing in. He gets another Fossilize on this guy, almost bringing him down, but the enemy Templar healing them up, and he's very low on Magicka now, making sure to just put that Magicka steal on as many targets as possible. And the friendly Templar here really taking a lot of damage himself, forced to retreat as well, and they're just going to kite on out of here and just try to get this group back in another position where they can get some good damage. There we see the Fossilize. The Templar goes for her ult, and they bring down another enemy yellow player, and more players pouring out of the gap here. WhyWhyWhy back into the Bat Swarm. The Templar jumping on top with the jabs as well. So much AoE damage there. They just push right past this other Templar's Nova, and no one's able to get any synergy or anything on it. Now it's just the enemy Templar kind of defending her own Nova there. The NPC throwing the stun down. So rude. And the friendly Templar just nuking that poor yellow player there. This guy gets rezzed. Oh, man. And he's just giving up more stones. Poor guy. Now, for our next fight here, they're back down on the yellow side of the sewers here. A big Fossilized stun in there. Now, in this clip, WhyWhyWhy is actually running Talons and Deep Breath, so he switched up his kit a little bit. And if you guys want to switch your kits up, of course, feel free to do so. Use the skills that you guys feel you want to try. And there we see a huge leap on these guys. The Templar going into his ult as well. Just massive AoE damage on that group. And there we see the Deep Breath explosion. There we see the stun off the Fossilize into the whip. Oh my gosh. Just so much damage coming out on these yellow players. And they just cannot deal with the burst. This build hits super hard. That's all I can say. Wow, this build hits really hard. Look at that. Just clean the entire yellow group up. Now, in this fight here, WhyWhyWhy is just coming down the staircase, and the yellow are waiting for these guys here at the staircase, and they jump on top, and right off the bat, you just get to see that durability, even with buffs down. He's got some nice durability, the HP as well, giving him the chance to quickly put his buffs up, get that nice burst heal off, and here we see the yellow players going for pressure on top of his friendly Templar there. WhyWhyWhy is going to turn around, dot this guy up a bit, just continue to throw the AoE dots and the single target ranged ones down as best he can as more yellow players start to show up, and they chase them into the tunnels here. But we've seen this before, the AoE damage on this build. There's the leap, the Templar going for this AoE as well. WhyWhyWhy cleaning off another kill there with the whip, pushing into the back end of this yellow group. Another fossilized down. He sets the dots down and goes for the whips again. And man, these poor guys just they don't have an answer to it. And now they've pushed through the front end of the group. They've got a couple players in the back here. WhyWhyWhy sets the dots down on this guy, hits him with the fossilize into the leap. Against a stamina build, especially a bow build, that's such a savage combo. And the last guy going down to the combined pressure again there. And now this time they're fighting a few red players down in the sewers, and WhyWhyWhy and his friendly player getting pushed back by this red group, but he's going to turn around with the ultimate and burn into these guys. A lot of AoE damage coming down. He goes into the fossilize, goes for the whips, and yeah, these guys all get melted. So we're going to let the rest of the video play out. I hope you guys enjoy the last clip here. A huge shout out to WhyWhyWhy EA for sending in the build. Thank you so much, my man. Be sure to check out this man's YouTube channel. We've got links to his channel in the description below. If you guys enjoyed the video and you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and stick around for daily ESO content. If you guys want to come chat with me live or come watch some gameplay, you can always check out a link to my Twitch down in the description below. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They give me better ping to my favorite games, and they're free to try for the first month. No credit card to sign up, so no harm, no foul. If it doesn't give you what you're looking for, link in the description below if you guys are interested in that. And last but not least, if you guys really love the show and you want to help support it, you can always become a patron on Patreon. Without your help, I wouldn't be able to do this job, so thank you guys so much for helping out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And big shout out again to WhyWhyWhy EA. Have a great night, everyone.